WNYC Studios is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning again, everyone. Coming up later in the hour, we're going to close out our week with a call-in for wedding season on the question, what's been the stickiest wedding-related decision or detail you've had to make or handle in planning a wedding for June, which is coming right up, or for any time this year. We'll end the show and end the week that way. But right now, we're going to meet the New York City Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice now, Julie Su. She's the first person to hold that title, which was created by the Mamdani administration in lieu of the more traditional title, Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. Now it's Economic Justice. The position does put her at the helm of shaping the administration's broader agenda around jobs, affordability, and economic growth. And maybe it's no surprise that Julie Su comes to the role from a very different background than many of her predecessors previously. Deputy mayors overseeing economic development often came directly from the business or finance world, but Su has spent her career focused on labor and worker protections, serving as California Labor Secretary and later the acting U.S. Labor Secretary under President Biden. So now, at a moment when some business leaders are warning that Mayor Mamdani's policies could drive companies and jobs away from New York, she's been meeting directly with CEOs and developers, according to news reports, while also rolling out policies focused on worker protections and affordability. So she's walking a pretty fine line, or in a pretty broad field, depending on how you look at it. The Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, Julie Su, is with us now. Deputy Mayor, thanks so much for joining. Welcome to WNYC.
Hi, Brian. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Let me actually start with a big picture history question before we get to your unique job title and specific policies. You know, people have been talking about economic inequality in New York for many decades, certainly every year that I have hosted the show, and long before that. Like Occupy Wall Street was 15 years ago, and long before that too. But in a lot of ways, the gap keeps widening. So do you have any big picture thoughts or analysis on why inequality has proven so persistent in this liberal, progressive union town, democratic city of New York?
I would say it's because we have accepted economic injustice as the natural outcomes of our policies for far too long. And I think that the historic election of Mayor Mamdani, where people came out to vote because they were really drawn to his clarity about bringing down prices, about making the city affordable, about focusing on people who are being driven out of the city because they just can't afford the basics. The reason why that resonated so much is that there's a real sense that that's not good enough, that we need to do things differently. We issued a report about the true cost of living in the city, that over 60% of New Yorkers can't afford to live. And post-pandemic, I think there were many cities where we saw some shrinking of the inequality, but New York City, the gap has actually grown. So I think, people want a different vision. They're ready to roll up their sleeves and help work for a different vision. And I'm proud to be part of an administration that has promised one and is working for one.
And listeners, we can take some of your questions for the Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, Julie Su, 212-433. WNYC, call or text, 212-433-9692. Let's get to your title. What does a Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice do, and how is that different, if it is different, from the more traditional title of Deputy Mayor for Economic Development?
Right. So, as you said, I am the first ever deputy mayor for economic justice in the city's history. It's really a reflection of the mayor's focus on ensuring that everyday New Yorkers can afford to live in the city, can do well in the city, can stay, get a good job, raise a family, and feel a genuine sense of security and joy, can participate in the things that make New York City such a world-class city. For me, the portfolio includes enforcing laws so that workers and consumers know that the city's got their back. It includes economic growth. So I think this is your second question, right? I do not
Hmm.
believe that economic growth and economic justice are in tension with one another. I think done well, those two things are mutually reinforcing. But economic justice for us is also about arts and culture. It's about recognizing that artists and creative people want to live in New York City and we should make it possible for them to do so. And also that all New Yorkers should get to participate in art and museums and shows and expression and creativity, the things that make New York, New York.
For people who may be surprised that you just brought up the arts, uh,
Mm.
so, near the top of the agenda, what would you say? Is that about creating jobs in the cultural sector in New York, which of course is one of the big economic sectors in New York, or is it
Right.
something other than that or greater than that?
It is that, and it's more than that. So it is about leaning into these important sectors and making sure that they can flourish and grow and feel supported by the city and have the conditions for success. So part of the mayor's budget was about more investments in our arts and culture sector. And of course, it's a sector that's facing headwinds, right? It's one where there have been massive federal cuts to funding, and the city is trying to do our part to show that we value it and we want it to grow. We also know that as much as there have been good jobs, those workers have been driven out of the city due to the cost of living. And so we have to address things like, our mayor's priorities, childcare, transit, housing, so that artists and cultural creators can live in the city. But it is also very much about access. And we know that access to arts and culture is not just about money because many of our cultural institutions have doubled down on New Yorkers. There's a lot of those offerings that are at lower cost or free for those who live in New York City, but it's about time. Working people don't have the time to participate in things that people come from all over the world to enjoy. And that's something we want to address, which is how we give people back their time. For us, economic justice isn't abstract, right? It's about a job that you can live on, so one job is enough. It's about a home that you can feel safe in, for you can afford your rent. It's about a schedule that you can plan around, and real security and stability, so that you can free up time to do things that bring you joy.
On a job that you can live on
Yeah.
based on the pay, listener writes, how high will you raise the minimum wage? And I realize you can't wave a wand and do this by fiat, neither can the mayor, but ideally, do you have a goal? Is this part of your agenda that you and the mayor will fight for? Listener writes, hi, how high will you raise the minimum wage?
Well, you're right that the mayor doesn't set the minimum wage, but we do look at job quality through a broader lens. It is about what people make. It's also about making sure that the wages you earn land in your pocket, right? That you're not the victim of some exploitation or junk fees or other things that we've prioritized just in the first few months. But job quality is about a whole host of things that make you feel secure. It's about knowing that you're going to come home healthy and safe. It's about being able to know what your schedule is going to be, so it doesn't like change at a moment's notice. Now you can't pick your kid up from school because your boss told you you have to stay late. It's about other things that we've attached to jobs that aren't required by law, but oftentimes, workers have them because they fought for them, because they have a union that has allowed them to bargain for them. Things like health benefits and retirement, all of those go into the cost of living and how secure people feel. And we're really focused on creating good jobs in the city that are characterized by all of these things that, again, lead to real security in life, and where workers aren't having to do what they've had to do for a long time, which is piece together life doing a job plus multiple side gigs. It's just not sustainable. And then people sent a clear message in the election. that they want better, and that's what we're laser focused on delivering.
So you say creating good jobs, but you know a lot of business leaders have been publicly anxious about the Mamdani administration, concerns about taxes, regulations, rhetoric around wealth, all of that. And I know you've been meeting with CEOs and business groups pretty consistently since you started in that role. At least that's what I read. So what have those conversations actually been like behind closed doors?
Yeah, Brian, you're highlighting an important point, which is that sometimes what we hear in the public square is different from what's happening in conversation. And I have found that in meetings with across New York City, whether you're talking to a delivery worker, a childcare provider, or the CEO of a global company, that there's a deep love for New York City, and there's a recognition that the inequity is unsustainable, that it's something we have to address. And in those meetings with the business sector, what I hear time and time again is we chose New York City for a reason. We love New York City, and we want to work with you to make it better. And that's true for us too. We want to partner with anybody who wants to do the work. I'll also say this, Brian. I think you've alluded to this a couple of times, which is when we talk about economic justice, do we also mean economic growth and economic development? And the answer to that is yes. Part of it is that so much wealth concentrated in the hands of so few is not just an economic justice issue, it's an economic growth issue, right? That inequity constrains growth. It's bad for our economy, and so we want to address it also as an economic strategy. And the more people can participate, the more they can live their full potential, the more they have economic mobility, and the more we can keep talent in New York City, also the better for our overall economy.
So let's go down some of the specific policies, some that listeners have probably heard of, like city-run grocery stores, and some they haven't. So let me start with some that maybe they haven't. So one example might be that you have focused on so-called junk fees and consumer protections. Some people may hear that and think it sounds small bore compared to larger economic questions. So why have you made these kinds of initiatives, consumer protection, junk fees, central to your agenda, which I think you have?
Yeah. These are the things that just eat away at people's economic security. Sometimes they feel little, but the accumulated effect of it is both you're working hard to make money, and that money's flowing out the door without you getting any benefit from it. Or it's also the insecurity, right, of not knowing when you're going to be hit by something. So early on, the mayor issued an executive order that was about us cracking down on junk fees, and that's partly where the city, right, what the city can do, but also partly looking at where those junk fees are the worst. So it could be like, you've been getting a bill for a long time for something that you wanted, and suddenly that bill now costs more. You don't know why. You don't know, you didn't get any benefit for it, but that has happened. Or as we saw in one of our cases, sometimes restaurants who rely on a delivery company to deliver the orders to their customers, these restaurants are seeing just these added fees come up out of nowhere. It's not what you contracted for. You don't know what you're getting for it, but it's cutting into your bottom line. And for small business restaurants in New York City who are part of the life and culture of our communities, those junk fees can be devastating. So we enforce the law. We crack down on that that company. The name was Hungry Panda, and we put hundreds of thousands of dollars back in the hands of New York small businesses. So protecting consumers is about protecting small businesses, protecting individuals from the kind of subscription traps and added fees that you just don't know where they came from, but they are making you less and less secure.
Listener writes, business owners want us all to live on subsistence wages and replace us with AI. Can we pass legislation banning companies from mass layoffs due to AI and automation? What do you say to that listener?
So this is a really important question because there's a lot of noise about AI. And I would say this, the reality is that AI is made possible through the accumulated information gained from the labor of working people. And whether you are whether it's a large language model that depends on work that workers have done, or it's about some automated vehicles that is based on studying what drivers do. We want to make sure that AI does not just benefit a few wealthy individuals, but actually benefits the working people who made it possible. That's one. The second thing I'll say is that, we're not knee jerk opposed to any kind of AI, right? There are some things where life can be made easier, things can be made quicker. We can get efficiency through some kind of artificial intelligence. But we also have to be very clear-eyed about the importance of jobs and good jobs. Our focus here is on how we create more good jobs in New York City. And we cannot allow AI to the answer of AI to just displace a whole bunch of people without really looking at what are the true costs and benefits of that.
Another thing your office has emphasized a lot is enforcement, especially around labor law violations. There have already been some major settlements I see, like involving deliveristas and food delivery app companies. Tell us a little bit about those efforts and how they fit into the broader goal of economic justice and economic growth.
So laws only have meaning in the lives of everyday New Yorkers if we enforce them. Otherwise, they're really words on a page. And so we are taking that very seriously. If a worker was supposed to get a certain amount of pay for something that they did, we want that pay to end up in the workers' pockets. If a worker was entitled to protected time off, right? New York City has some of the strongest laws that protect working people. It is our job in the mayor's office and through our agencies to breathe life into those laws. And so we, both through education, right? We did an event with domestic workers and caregivers at the Queens Public Library, making sure that they knew about that protected time off. Oftentimes, workers who work in people's homes or work in more isolated settings know less about their rights, and we want to make sure that's not the case. You can only enforce laws that you know that you're entitled to. But this is about government delivering for people. If you come forward and report a violation, you want to know that the city's got your back. That is both because it's important for that particular worker, but it's also because it's about trust in government, right? Will government act when laws are broken? And I also want to say, Brian, many people have the mistaken belief that when you enforce the laws, it's bad for business. But businesses rely on predictability. They rely on consistency. I've had many who've said to me, look, I'm not opposed to playing by the rules. Just tell me what the rule is and make it consistent. And enforcement is about that level playing field, ensuring that everybody has to play by the same set of rules. So I deeply believe that it also is pro-business to enforce laws in a fair and consistent manner.
Listener writes, New York City housekeepers, this refers to hotel housekeepers, just won its workers $100,000 a year within the next 8 years, I believe, the listener writes. I think that's right. It ramps up to $100,000 a year over a period of years for the hotel housekeepers. The listener's question is, can we do that for retail workers?
Right. I mean, thank you for the question, right? This demonstrates that I think New Yorkers are hungry for good jobs and real justice in the workplace. And this is an administration that stands with them and supports that. We know that affordability is about two sides of the equation. It's about bringing down costs, but it's also about increasing the number of good jobs in the city. So I got to say this. The reason why the hotel workers got that is because they have a union, and unions bargained for wages that are not required by law, right? Not everybody gets them, but when workers have real power in the workplace, and when employers are willing to work with their employees to understand that their workers are the best investment they can make, you can have these kinds of outcomes, right? Jobs that for a long time people have said, well, they just have to be low wage jobs. There's nothing about any job that means it has to be a low wage job. And I think, unions and strong unions are a priority for this administration because we recognize that is very much a key strategy in creating more affordability in the city.
All right, I know you got to go in just a few. We're going to get one more listener question in here, and it's going to come from Bruce in Manhattan. Bruce, you're on the line on WNYC with Julie Su, Mayor Mamdani's new deputy mayor for economic justice. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Kind of two parts. So this office under Mayor Bloomberg did amazing things to grow the city's jobs, bringing in Technion, to grow the tech sector, all the stuff he did in biotech. It's amazing. But I love what this office is doing, focusing on things like wage theft, which is actually the biggest dollar amount of theft that happens in this country, which you don't hear in the papers, right? It's all about crime and we need more cops, blah, blah, blah. But you guys are focusing on real economic justice issues that will make life better in the city for everyday people.
And so you've got a fan out there in Bruce in Manhattan, but talk about the issue that he raised, wage theft.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Bruce, for raising that. This has been work that I've been committed to throughout my career. And what Bruce said is exactly right. Wage theft, meaning workers going to work, putting on a hard day and not getting everything that they earned is there's more losses based on that than the combination of a whole bunch of other crimes put together. And yet many people recognize it as, just like something that happens in the workplace and we shouldn't interfere with it. No, we really believe that laws should be enforced. Employers should all play by the same set of rules, and every worker should get a just day's pay for a hard day's work. And that will remain a priority for this administration.
So 1 minute left. The large employers, when you're meeting with these executives and developers who are very vocal against the Mamdani administration in theory, and I mentioned this before, and you answered a version of it before about threatening to take jobs away. Do you get the sense that they see your labor-oriented approach to this job as fundamentally at odds with growth or not? And then anything you want to say in our last 30 seconds.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I'll say this. I think that there's certainly some anxiety, about who the mayor is, about this, focus on justice. But that's also why we sit down and have conversations with people and, really build genuine partnerships. Because I think everybody recognizes that we can't make New York City the city that it could be, right? It's the greatest city in the world, but it could also be more just and more fair, and more people, should be able to live and work and build a life in it if we don't work together to do that. And so, yeah, there's certainly a lot of, assumptions about who this mayor is and what we're going to do. But we're proving through the work that we do, through our openness and transparency, and again, through our willingness to work with anybody who loves the city and wants to roll up their sleeves with us, that we can do real things, that government, with bold ambition and clarity and a commitment to excellence can, not only fix potholes, but also deliver real justice. And I'm proud to be a part of the administration that's doing it.
Well, thanks for coming on with us for a first time in this role. We really appreciate it. It's such an important job. It's such a centrally important job, considering, how people are having to live around here right now and what's going on in the country. It's the number one issue in the country, not just in the city. And, we have our Ask the Mayor series launch next Tuesday with Mayor Mamdani, as he is committed to come on from time to time. And considering the work you're doing and how granular it is in all these areas, we would love to have you come on from time to time, too. So I hope this is not the last time.
I would love that, Brian. We can count on that.
Deputy Mayor for Economic Justice, Julie Su, first person to hold that title. It used to be for economic development. Now it's for economic justice and includes economic development. And I could tell from the response, people are, very, very interested. Obviously, it's so personal to everybody in the work you're doing. So thanks for today, and we'll talk again.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of our programming gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn about how your organization can support WNYC and WNYC Studios at sponsorship.wnyc.org.